Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Deep Thoughts. Today I'm kind of torn. It's actually not so cold out tonight. Let's see. See how cold it is. 57. God, it feels like summer out here. I want to talk about NASA. That's what I really want to talk about. But I think we can make it slightly more psychological at the same time. Because it's such an interesting experience. If I'll put it this way, gosh, it's hard to put this into words right at the beginning here. I don't even know what I'm going to call this episode, so you know more than me at this point. What would we be like as human beings if we believed all the bullshit that we were told? Just all of it. Just everyone tells the truth. Governments tell the truth, political parties tell the truth, corporations tell the truth, individuals tell the truth, preachers tell the truth. What would our world be like if we all were complicit and followed the rules? And I'll tell you where we'd be. 97 to 99% of us would be dead. Because they would have already gotten rid of us one way or the other. Either sterilized us or you're not supposed to have any more kids. Well, I haven't even had any. Well, see, you've already had too many. The fact that you exist means your parents had too many. Well, I'm only one child. My parents reduced the world population. Well, you know what? They should have stopped. Oh, those guns, you don't need those guns. Guns kill people all by themselves, right? But let's just say maybe we give ourselves a little bit of backbone. It really won't exist if globalists have anything to do with it. I mean, seriously, your backbone, your fortitude to continue being free as a person wouldn't be allowed. That's because you could stand up against them. And I'll give an example of that, and then we'll see if we can get this back on track. Imagine if those of you saw Downton Abbey, those of you who've seen any show like The Crown or any other royalty, rich people show. Some people know trained butlers. I don't know if there's a chamber lady or something like that. That's the female version of that. But there's an etiquette that you don't talk to the master. If someone were to, regardless of how intelligent they might be, let's just say they're a very intelligent person, but let's just say the queen's in her little office there and doing queeny things and her trash can's full, or it's that day where it's going to get cleaned out. And for some reason, she's in there. Current etiquette is you wouldn't go in there if she was in there. All that stuff should be done before she gets in the room. But if things were a little bit different and nice and sweet, she would go in there, be able to empty the trash and say, "How was your day?" I'm not here to have a giant conversation. I'm just going to ask you, are you having a good day? And if you aren't, then maybe I can say, "I hope things get better." But you can't. You don't, because poor people aren't supposed to talk to rich people, right? The class structure system. The NASA thing for me is just fascinating because for a lot of us, when we talk about NASA frauds and that sort of thing, it's all rooted in like moon mission things, right? ISS fake footage, the Hubble telescope not being entered into the international database of launched vehicles in space, which is the database that tracks space trash, right? That's why the database exists. Where are you launching this thing? What orbit is it going to be in? How high is it going to be up in there? Okay. And so you put all your astrophysics in there for orbital decay, and the database gets recalculated and really just generally keeps up with where these vehicles are, expecting, cooperation with the space agency that owns it in case they move it up a little higher. We've moved it from 180 to 200. Okay, thanks, man. Updated in the database, right? So there's lies. We know that. That's why we explore this whole topic. But now, what else does NASA represent to some people? I just met a really nice gentleman who has a past at NASA. I haven't talked to him and interviewed him by any means, but he's a very sweet guy, very intelligent. And I might be working with this guy soon in a whole different capacity. And I realize that if I participate in this project, there will come a point where, my belief system of NASA and his belief system of NASA is going to, I wouldn't say clash or conflict with each other, but there'll be definitely a different level of respect for the institution, of course, and so on and so forth. And then you want to make sure that it's not a surprise to the individual. So if I ever do start working with them on a daily basis, I would have to find the right time to kind of say, well, dude, I don't want you to find this out through watching YouTube videos or someone send you an email. I want you to learn it from me. And that way you can ask me any questions you want and we'll go through it. And I also want to talk about probably more sexy a topic would be, which, I guess the first agenda would be to really kind of isolate what NASA represents to an average NASA fanboy, because that'll be the conversation and the elements that you end up discussing if you're lucky, or argue over if it's a typical interaction, depending on the IQ of the person you're talking to. But what's interesting is, there's this moment. I was talking to a friend of mine, and I don't know if I actually mentioned this in the last episode. There's a really, really interesting, profound thing that happens when you experience something, and then, you're there. You are first-hand eyewitness. And then later on, you share that experience with someone. And let's say the event that you were at is very profound. And let's say that it wasn't like a 9/11, which is super duper complex, right? Again, I've had 3 people tell me they saw the planes enter the buildings, and then the second plane entered the building. And then when I said, okay, where were you standing? Where were you looking? All 3 of them had to admit they were looking at a television, or they were looking down. They heard the explosion and looked up, and, later they found out it was a plane. It's like, it's interesting, but a more simple event. And for me, it's really the one where I'm debriefed by these folks from NASA. Really one guy, I use the formal word debrief. It wasn't like, hey, sit down, man, get your pen and paper out or whatever. Here's the slideshow. Nothing like that. It was 2 dudes. One of them, very decorated, super brilliant dude. And I don't know the background of the other guy. But they both talked at great detail to prove to me that they were definitely involved with the Mars project out of NASA in the Bay Area. And so, that happened to me in 1991. 1991, man. There's no HTTP protocol. There's no internet. There's an internet, but it's all text-based telnet kind of crap. I didn't have any access to it. And the reason why I mention that is that you could go online and look up some things or whatever. Not available, man. But I will share that truth at times. And I'll just have people look me right in the face, sort of metaphorically online, especially, and go, bullshit. I'm like, what? Bullshit, anyone told you that? I'm like, whoa, fascinating. Because it did happen. These people were celebrated within my company because they came from NASA. Meaning like super brilliant. These guys are super brilliant because they came from NASA. And I'm like, yeah, great. They are. They're totally sweet guys, man. As far as I understood, both of them resigned as a result of being on a treadmill that wasn't going anywhere. And the one guy got the other guy the job at our company. But what's funny is the dude who told me, or ironic or interesting, is that the guy who told me all these details, and I heard his whole past from all the other upper management people about him being a prodigy kid working in NASA like 16, and he held 7 patents, which he bragged to me about. He's expunged his entire past. Interesting. He expunged a lot more than just NASA, but it's just interesting. He's independently wealthy, and I guess he just doesn't care. Maybe he just doesn't like being online with information about himself. He doesn't need anybody else. It was an interesting thing. And so, the other ones, just having to do with, I guess the second tier of that, and there's 2 experiences I mentioned very briefly, which I want to mention again, which is that At two different occasions, I had very close friends of mine, like best friends of mine, who knew I was into this kind of thing. And again, I'm not into it because I think it's great. I'm into it because I'm like, really? Fuck, this sucks, man, right? Because I didn't believe that it was faked in 1991, even after being told what I really couldn't comprehend. I mean, it was like I should have been able to totally digest it. The science was easy to understand, but the part I had an issue with was the claim that a big organization like NASA could lie and could pull it off, right? And really up to 1991, the moon mission being a hoax was sort of just like, I don't know, it was like 10% of me thinking about JFK being assassinated by anyone other than Lee Harvey Oswald. It just wasn't a big priority to me in my life. But anyway, I've had two NASA people dropped in front of me. And there was one was so subtle that I barely remember our conversation, but I do remember getting that person to agree with me. But the one that was the most loud, the one that said, he sits down in front of me, and I don't know how it came out, but the dude who paired us up, my good buddy, it was at a restaurant, and he says, you guys need to talk about this because he knows everything about the moon hoax. And the dude all of a sudden looks away. There's nobody over there. And he just goes, well, anyone who doesn't believe in the moon mission is just a fucking asshole. Like, literally, quote unquote, okay? And I'm looking at the guy, and I just gave him, a few little tidbits of what would have been the case, going back, putting a rover on the Mars, all this other kind of stuff, taking some of our gigantic telescopes and taking pictures of the moon's surface, the disc arrays, the digital disc arrays, our telescope arrays in the desert. I mean, I don't even know what they could do looking at the moon. But I gave him like 3 or 4 little things, and then he kind of he's wandering around like he's not supposed to talk about this, obviously. But he kind of looks around, realizes he's in a restaurant. It's owned by the dude who sat him down, so there's no covert, anything anywhere. And I'm just a schmo in front of him. So he finally cracks a grin, and he goes, yeah, you're right. Boom. And this dude was a top clearance at NASA. So it wouldn't be like Area 51 clearance, but it would be the equivalent of like Queen's clearance, Q clearance within NASA. And so he knew it was bullshit. And it was interesting that he knew. Because, I don't even know what his position was. It was like we couldn't know. So when these events occurred, I'm having conversations with people who are intelligent people and good people who immediately rebuff the stuff. I'm just like, really? Maybe it's rebut. And so, we're going to, because I've recently had to go, and I keep mentioning this in episodes because it continues. Okay. Since the last time I made the NASA waste episode, I've had more conversations about the Kubrick involvement. And what's interesting about it is I discovered something very interesting. One, even the most informed geniuses about the moon hoax, who have done more field research than any other people on Earth, they're in the top 10 people on Earth, still can't divorce themselves from Kubrick being involved. So Vivian and I are going to go another round. She's going to try to actually produce some paper proof of some things we already know to be the truth. But just, I listen to people and they'll tell me that, here they are. They don't know. They never knew Stanley Kubrick, right? Never knew the guy. Never met the guy. Never worked with him. All the information they have on the guy is just purely incidental crap that was in the newspapers. And they behave as if his daughter knows a lot less than they do. Well, who the hell is she? She's an idiot, blah, blah, blah. Or she doesn't know anything. Or she's just protecting her dad or whatever. It's like, you don't think we talked about those psychological factors, right? So for me, when I talked to Vivian, she said, look, I've avoided even remotely touching this moon hoax stuff because, I was with my father all during these timetables that people said he was off in some set filming. Sorry, I had to pause for the helicopter. But she said, look, man, if he was gone for more than, me put it to you this way. There's a couple things you should know. He always configured his film shooting such that he was home for dinner. And after she was old enough to be on set, which we know she was in the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, she was in the art department of The Shining, and she was around. And the older she got, the more time she spent every single day with her dad. He loved her to death. She loved him. They had just a really cool, deep partnership, you know. If he had gone to America in June of 1968 to film the moon hoax, which is a new piece of information I've been given, then she would be there. The family would be there. He traveled by boat because he didn't like planes. And so there was one night in her life where she woke up and her dad wasn't in the house at night. And she threw a huge fit because she's a little kid, doesn't understand. He was back within the hour. But he had gone off to have a little meeting in New York. And this is, I can't remember, he was about 7 years old or something like that, I think. But, you know, so there was this knowledge that if I woke up and my dad wasn't there, I was going to have a big issue. It never happened again. Okay. You know, there's some, I guess, extreme exceptions, but when there was exceptions, the only other exception I know was that during the filming of Barry Lyndon, there was a bunch of IRA terrorism going on in Ireland, and so at one point there was about, I think, a 3-week period where the two were separated, and she's with her mom and her sister, and Stanley was off filming. But we know where he was. He was on the set of Barry Lyndon filming it, and the moon missions are already over. Okay. So for 12 and a half years, she was at her father's side. And if he's off at some Air Force base or some secret base filming something, helping them do it, then she's going to be with him. Okay. But when I hear people make assumptions about other people's credibility or other people's knowledge bases, you know, it's like, your life wasn't your life. I know your life because it serves me to have this belief about you. It's a mind fuck, you know? And then the Shining thing. I've got another round with a friend of mine about the Shining thing. And I've heard this from the comments almost verbatim. And, you know, Q keeps advancing this assertion that things mean things that he wants you to believe that they mean. And once you're willing to buy someone else's narrative about an event, the most average event in the universe can become a conspiracy. Okay? Once you accept a normal event as a conspiracy, then you can start introducing the second phrase to lock down your Kubler-Ross effect that you're right and everyone else is wrong. And you call it a coincidence. Coincidence, right? So, you know, the Shining scene is, the little boy, Danny, playing with his cars on a carpet of a hexagonal pattern, stands up, little tennis ball rolls over to him from the evil room, 326 or 327, the 327, yeah. He stands up, he's got an Apollo 11 sweater on, it's custom, and he walks to room 237, and then something bad happens to him, and then Jack goes up to check, and he finds the hot babe, and then the old lady in the room. Okay. Well, I just recently saw a photograph of the launch pads for the Saturn V, and they're not exactly remotely they're remotely shaped like a hexagon, but they're not exactly like the carpet at all. So we have been told that the launch pads, and they show you future launch pads that were very hexagonal, but they don't show you the one that the Saturn V launched on precisely. And so they introduced the idea that this is a conspiracy between the carpet and the launch pad. Well, that makes it seem like a coincidence. But it may not even be the truth. Okay. Vivian was assigned to find the carpet. When she brought all the samples back from London, her father very casually got off the set, walked in, didn't want to be reviewing carpet samples, okay? Wasn't a big conspiracy, right? He's looking through everything she brought back, and she was disappointed that everything that she picked, he didn't like. Okay, if he wanted a hexagonal carpet, people, he wouldn't have sent his daughter into London to pick a bunch of carpet samples that then he rejects. And it was like, as she described it, there was a bit of like, I gotta wait another day to figure out what the carpet's gonna look like or whatever. Right then and there, the art director said, I'll just throw something together. He goes back to the room with Vivian. This dude quickly creates a real hexagonal pattern thing. So, AD rushes it out to Kubrick and shows it to him. He's like, yeah, that's great. Go ahead. Right. He's done. The idea that it's a huge fucking conspiracy is only in the mind of people that want to make it a conspiracy. Therefore, it's called a coincidence. And if you have a lot of coincidences in your brain, you're thinking, oh, this is a sign. This is a sign from fucking, God or whatever, right? The sweater. She's in the room. Vivian's in the room. Italian family member is angsting over what to knit because she's been told to make a custom sweater. That's all she's been told. So the big debate went around the room of what to knit. And her boyfriend was in the room and said, you know what? They just landed on the moon a bunch of times. Why don't you just do something space oriented? So she puts this thing together. What's it called again? Oh, the Apollo. All right. So she comes up with a little pattern and stitches it together. But of course, if you weren't fucking there, you can make up a conspiracy that this was all intentional. Stanley's like, make sure it's a rocket t-shirt. Make sure it says Apollo on it. Those events never occurred. Vivian's in the room. But now that becomes another coincidence that stacks up on a bunch of bullshit coincidences before. Okay. Then there's the room 237. All right. It's a romantic number. 237,000 miles is supposed to be the average distance from the moon to the Earth. Well, the average distance to the moon is 238,000 miles. Average. Okay. Now, when I went to high school, my teacher always told us kids that once our car hits 225,000 miles, that we've driven to the moon. So 225 went to 328. So shit's wrong, right? Okay. So is the key really the distance to the moon, or is it just close? Okay. Well, let's just say the moon varies. Let's just say the closest it could be is 225, and the furthest away it can be, that's probably not correct at all. And the furthest away, it may be 230, 242 or some bullshit, right? Okay. So if you pick any number between those two numbers, someone can assert that Stanley Kubrick, in trying to, I think it was 217, I think, was in the book. So they added 20 to it to make 237. This bothered Stanley his whole life, in a jesting kind of way that, it wasn't like he lost sleep over it, but he just got annoyed by the assertion that he changed the number intentionally to 237 as if he had this grand scheme. He was like, they told me not to use 217, which was in the book. So I'm busy. I'm directing. I said, fuck it. Just make it whatever number, make it 237, make it whatever. Not even sure if he picked a number or not. But the assertion that it is a very specific number makes it a conspiracy. And then that conspiracy becomes a coincidence. So you have coincidence of the carpet, which isn't true. Coincidence of the sweater, which isn't true. Coincidence of the fucking number on the key isn't true. Now, a friend just brought something to my attention that the movie Eyes Wide Shut supposedly had a contract in place that if Stanley were to die before the release of the movie, that the movie was to release on the 30th anniversary of the moon, either the landing or the launch. Okay, well, let's just look at the facts there. So sure about this thing. It actually released on July 13th, 1999. Apollo 11 launched on the 20th of July. Okay, well, let's look at the facts here. Okay. The Apollo 11 rocket launched on July 16th, 3 days after this anniversary date. Okay. Landed on the 20th. Well, now we're 7 days past the release date. So again, false factoid. No one bothers to look up shit that's released on the internet. Therefore, the launch date or release date, of Eyes Wide Shut is not, it's close to, but not on the 30th anniversary. So it's a false assertion that becomes a conspiracy, that then becomes a coincidence, which locks in Stanley Kubrick. Okay. We have to not do this if we're going to get to the truth, right? Imagine that you're an astronaut. You don't go to the moon, but you go into orbit. You look down on the Earth. It's a round ball. You go up maybe a couple times, different things, shuttle missions, whatever. You're in the space station for a little while, especially if you're in the space station. Let's say that thing exists, maybe in a different form than the one we see. We're looking down. And then you get back down to Earth. And there's a bunch of you who've done it. Dozens and dozens of you have been into low orbit, 200 miles up. Now you're looking around, you're having conversations at the lunch table. And you say, you know what's really weird? Unless you do that little trip, this place seems flat. Unless you do that trip, you would think you're not moving. Isn't that weird? Yeah, it's almost like you don't understand why they thought it was flat. Yeah, isn't that weird? Yeah. Okay. That little kernel incubates for 50 years. Let's just say 45 years. All right. And then someone asks us okay, you know how we've been caught lying about going to the moon? Yeah, it sucks, doesn't it? Yeah. I had an idea. Oh, yeah, really? Okay. Here's what we're going to do. What if we could, we can't beat them at the facts. We tried to create a website, which is this is the true fact. NASA has come up with, or at least used to have web pages. I don't even know if they're up there anymore. I've seen them. I've read them, where they tried to address converging shadows and just everything that's a problem for them, which is now 10 times the amount of crap they put on their website. And they said, well, what do you do in a court case when someone's got you dead to rights? You attack their credibility. And someone's like, okay, I feel you, but okay, how are we going to get these people that are awake to lose their credibility? Because we didn't go to the moon, and they know. And they just get better and better and better at figuring out the facts. Well, here's my idea. You remember, how all the astronauts come back and they say they travel the world after they've been in space, that no matter how high they go up in a plane, you never see curvature because you don't get 80 miles up and that kind of stuff. Yeah. But what if we were to relaunch the flat Earth thing? What? Yeah. Start a whole disinfo campaign about flat Earth. Well, what do you mean? Yeah, well, light actually bends around the edge of the Earth, and you can see things that are, on the other side of the curve because of the atmosphere refraction and stuff like that. Why don't we just leverage all that against them? The fact that because of the way the universe actually works and not the phenomenon gravity that's in the, all the science books, that there is no sense of moving. Whatever thing they come up with. Okay, I get you. Okay, well, let's float this one up and see if we can get some funding to make this happen. Maybe even hand it off to another agency that'll take care of it. Yeah, sounds great. And so they get that comedian artist guy to run around incubating the thing. They test it on people on the internet. And of course, some people are going to go for it. Mark Sargent will go for it and believe it 100%. The guy that just killed himself in the fucking homemade rocket bought it and died. He hasn't done the math to figure out he didn't need to go up in the fucking thing personally. You need to build a rocket that can hit 80 miles in the sky, not 80,000 feet, 80 miles, 80 times 5,280 feet. Okay. And I guarantee you, if this place is round, you're going to see it. If you can't reach that altitude, do not launch and don't stop developing your rocket. Okay. I read some, it's funny, the stupidity is all over the place. This guy just friended me. He's a mutual friend of some people. I don't know who the fucking guy is. I went to his webpage and he posted that poor guy who died in the rocket. And he said, oh, this guy was trying to prove something that anyone could see in a hot air balloon. You know how fucking stupid. Even Neil deGrasse Tyson, as pop science as that dude is, did a whole episode on his show, or at least somebody's show, where he held up a beach ball of the world. And he said, look, you're not going to see curvature of the earth in a fucking plane. It's not high enough, right? But you got these people. Yes, you do, man. Very good friends of mine who are very brilliant still think they can. It's like, no, you're seeing curvature of the window if you're seeing anything. Well, I looked out the cockpit. Oh, you did? Oh, well, what's the shape of the cockpit windows? That doesn't, just stop making me wrong. Just put a camera straight to the edge of one of the windows and take pictures. I did that on a bunch of my flights, and they're all flat as a fucking, as a level, man. You're not going to see curvature up there, man. There's not enough curvature to register the rods and cones in your eyes until you get up there. Okay. So they sucker punch a bunch of people. They really are promoting a divisive dissent because they understand the human beings are too, I don't know how to use a friendly word here, too much of a certain way to remain friends while they disagree about something, But the resistance to all this information can be so subdermal. I've talked about it 100 times, but it's like when you want the bad guy to go down, it's almost like you'll believe anything about the bad guy, right? We have we have politicians that are definitely evil motherfuckers, okay? They are, by their own admission, by their own allegiance to globalism, trying to destroy all forms of freedom, trying to usher in socialism, which has just categorically failed. In fact, I read some article today about a socialistic community we generated here in the United States, and it completely imploded. But you don't need to go that far. All you have to do is look at 60s communes imploding, and socialism doesn't work. But the thing I'm trying to get at is, it would be a shame if for a lot of these super corrupt people, we would have to invent things to get them prosecuted. I sometimes wonder, it's like, I don't think God is going to worry about any of the shit we do down here. There's staring your fellow souls in the face is your hell, right? You screw someone over, you meet them in the afterlife, and you're like, dude, I'm really sorry. And I'm sure they don't care at that point. They're like, dude, I'm high as hell in heaven. Who cares, right? But, it's like, I think we have a good thing with the awakening, especially as it pertains to NASA. And the beauty of it is that I think that through my own show, other than the fact that I accused Kubrick in episode 26 and probably 136, somewhere in there, the second one, of him being involved. Don't know exactly what to do with that besides take it down and crunch all that out, but it'll make the episode kind of strange. But I did put a correction in there in the description. Probably not good enough. We'll have to figure out what to do with that. But I'm big enough to hear, a logical chain of events and walk away from something I believed previously. It's part of the process. It's okay. But let's just say that we all agree that at least the awakening movement that we've started way before Q ever existed. Now, he is very helpful, even if he's a LARP, which nobody knows, What is bothering me about that dude is he seems to be capable of submitting what they call Q proofs that he's with the Trump, group. Like, he will do certain things that seem like it's undeniable from either the time he posted his thing and then someone else in the administration posts a very similar thing, even Trump himself. 17 is all over Trump's world. The letter Q is all over Trump's world. So it looks like, they're intermixed. But the problem is, who gives a fuck if he's in the administration? I don't give a shit if he doesn't know anybody in the administration. What I care about is the constant fucking claim that something's going to happen. Something big is going to happen, that an indictment's going to turn out to be something. Because right now, all the people that he has said, besides maybe Epstein, okay, and maybe a few, random people in the world, the big criminals are still free. 100%. 100%. And, every day they live, they get one day closer to the grave. And that means one more day that they live on this planet, spreading their evil, spreading their agenda. You got them 9 ways to Sunday. They're just too chicken shit to level the playing field when it comes to justice. And that is basically, I don't know, a lesser lie for a bigger lie or something like that. We have to form techniques of vetting the information and being more skeptical until we really have some hardcore stuff. Now, we can be very sure about something or be, siding with it much more heavily. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can say, if someone comes up to me and says, do you think Barack Obama was born in the United States? Okay, here's how I process that. Well, there seems to be a lot more evidence that he was born in Kenya than any other place on earth. From his Harvard University exchange student Kenya thing, to his aunt saying she was there when he was born, to him being in Kenya and saying his birthplace on a recording, to the president of Kenya saying this is where Barack Obama was born. Yeah, it looks like, technically speaking, wherever his mother got impregnated may or may not have anything to do with that area. Now, the gentleman that is earmarked as his father in Kenya most definitely is not his father. Okay, go look at his half-brother, who is extremely different than him. His father has completely different geometry, and you can't take everything that doesn't look like the mother and give it to the father. You can't. There's a Indonesian cult leader that looks just like him. Frank Marshall Davis looks a lot like him. But what if it's none of them? What if we simply don't know? It seems that anyone who knows anything about Obama is killed instantaneously. So the Rolling Stone reporter that was killed by having his car accelerator jam, and he hits a palm tree in Los Angeles and just totals his whole car and dies instantaneously. This DNC whistleblower that was got a bunch of shit on Obama just was murdered, and no one seems to give a fuck. I mean, it's just like, really? The second that something like that happens, Donald Trump himself should come out and say, I am putting every goddamn FBI agent that's available on this case. We will find out who murdered this guy. Every surveillance camera, every single GPS net, we will find out who the fuck killed this guy. Nope. Just one more guy gets murdered. Yeah, it's just the way it works. It's like we're in the wild fucking West, and the guy walked in and pissed off, Wyatt Earp, and he's got a bullet in his fucking head 2 days later, or 2 seconds later. I guess another way to look at this is, for those of you who watch Walking Dead season 1 and 2 with Shane, Rick's best friend, there was this duality, and this is where we are right now. The apocalypse is truth, and the old world that was destroyed by this virus in the TV series is the old guard, like the Pelosi's and the Schumers, and, just the old guard. In the first 2 seasons, I think it was the end of the second season, this guy who plays the Punisher now, he was actually playing Lee Iacocca in Ford versus Ferrari. Amazing actor. I love this guy to death. I've written something he should probably play the character on. He kept trying to convince Rick, look, we have to change our ways. The world just completely changed. Everything that used to make the world work is no longer working. It won't work. And if we continue with these old methods, we're going to perish. We're going to die because we're not following Darwin's most basic theory, which is, survival of the fittest, right? And Rick kept trying to take this high ground. This is beautiful writing, so I'm not criticizing the story at all. I'm actually accepting the story 100%. And this was a very powerful scene. But Rick kept saying, no, we have to maintain society. We have to maintain things the way they were. Rick was wrong. Rick was wrong. And he wasn't completely wrong, but the idea was that they had to learn how to fight fire with fire. Now, I just told you that I don't want to have a situation where we make up conspiracies that don't exist simply to, pile more shit on the hatred pool we might have for an individual, for organization, that sort of thing. Because these things are generally made of human beings, right? That's what a corporation is. It's a piece of paper pretending to be a human that employs real humans. Now, there are conspiratorial humans in these organizations that are lying to us, taking our money, and they don't give a shit what happens to us. They should be discovered, investigated, prosecuted, etc., etc. America is being taught right now that supposedly there's this swamp cleaning going on, and that it's going to take a really, really long time to get it done. Meanwhile, a bunch of people who have lied under oath, people who have violated top secret clearances from Hillary Clinton to McCabe to Comey, I'm trying to remember all their names, they should be in jail, or at least tried and sentenced, and then we'll let a judge figure out what the sentence is. I mean, jail is where you hold them before they go to prison, right? Before the convictions turn into a sentence, right? That's not what's happening. What is happening is that we're seeing the world, we're seeing, at least in America, the reinforcement that there's two justice systems. While being told, we're going to get rid of this whole thing. It would be so simple to try some of these people. Now, with McCabe, they said they let him off a lesser charge because they're going to pin him down for a bigger charge. He is a young man. He could spend the rest of his life behind bars, but also it's all been telegraphed to him so he could run and hide somewhere. I don't know if John Wilkes Booth thought it was crappy to live on an island outside of England his whole life. It seemed like he didn't like his own country, so maybe he enjoyed it. So if they go off to what I call Billionaire Island, which is just a metaphor for a place where you don't even know where it is physically, who knows? Who knows, right? But it's demoralizing to us to see injustice continue to go, right? I've said to you guys a few times that it's one thing to have a bunch of conspiracies and the only people you talk to are your closest friends, your mom and your dad or whatever, and you guys can all disagree about what's going on, and you can pitch a bunch of unsubstantiated claims because it's only them. And either they don't care or they do care. Either you'll get caught or you won't get caught. But most of the time in those conversations, nobody wants to waste their life chasing your conspiracies. So you can claim a bunch of weird crap and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. You've been to Atlantis. We all get it. But I'll tell you, it's a real difference to put your stuff out there on the internet in forms of a YouTube channel because you're inviting the world to watch it, to critique it, and to check it. And that's why on occasion, I'll completely flub a piece of information or overlook something very important, and you guys are generous enough to correct me in the comments section. And so then I update my database, And like I've said it before, I want you to know I utterly cringe when I find that I've been quoting something incorrectly to you folks. And one of the ones that I've been saying incorrectly, I don't know, probably a dozen times. And I think it was because my teacher quoted it wrong because I have a really big thing for numbers in my mind. Memorizing them just is an effortless thing. He had said that Casablanca was released in 1936, and it was actually released in 1942 during the war, which 36 is way too soon for the narrative that's in the movie to go, and I never really put it together. Actually, I did angst over that, going, okay, well, I guess German occupation was going on prior to us being involved, and I thought, maybe that's the way it worked, but it wasn't. It was 1942. That kills me. It's like YouTube won't let me correct a video and then repost it within the slot that is the video that's already been shared. So the URL changes if I re-upload it edited which means I lose a bunch of statistics, or it starts to throw off the count of the channel. Part of that reason for them is so that you don't, post a video where you're telling everybody to go F themselves. Everyone responds badly, and then you re-upload the video saying how much you want everyone to have everything that they want in life, and I love you, and then all the responses look like they're jerks, right? So it's just this accountability thing. It's why Twitter won't let you modify a tweet. They want to lock you into everything that you say, so you can't get out of your things. You can't, again, say F you and a bunch of, racist comments. Everybody hates you. And then you say, I love everybody, as you modify it. It's funny how Facebook does that. You can just totally play with people. But anyway, if we don't develop a process to keep ourselves really high on the integrity level of trying to spread good information, then, whatever heroes have been built up through the course of the awakening can be taken down overnight. If they just sit and harvest a bunch of beliefs that are not true, And the other thing I want to encourage you as we just kind of meander around the NASA subject matter is that I want to set the stage for you folks that are interested in this content. Right now, NASA JPL are brewing another hoax. They're brewing 2 hoaxes. And we need to be vigilant. I've given you 100 different ways that we could examine their performance and determine whether or not it is real or another hoax. I guarantee you, I will personally activate a fleet of, it doesn't even matter if I get killed or whatever, this is going to happen no matter what, a fleet of special effects folks to analyze every fucking second of this footage. It's going to happen anyway. When SpaceX faked their booster landing on a fucking barge in the Pacific Ocean, these special effects folks came out and just devastated that footage. They were like, there's frames missing. There's composite techniques. You can see particle systems that they use from various packages. I mean, they cannot hide their hoax, right? But the moon mission is 100 times more intense than anything that this barge would have ever had. And of course, what's going to happen, because the story's already written. I'll tell you what the story is. Man goes to the moon, gets out of a ship, walks around, no fucking problem. You'll have a totally ridiculous suit on that will not be able to contain the amount of oxygen required to be on the moon, let alone fend off all the temperatures. And they're going to get back in this vehicle. It's going to take back off, and it's going to come home safely. No astronauts will die in the process of going over there. Same exact thing is going to happen with Mars. Same exact thing. It's all going to be, NASA never gets anything wrong, right? These people could be introduced to the most infinitely complex problem, close their eyes, tie their hands behind their back, and if it required throwing a dart and making sure it bounced off 20,000 surfaces and landed in a bullseye, otherwise everybody dies, they could have it in their teeth. They just blow it out of their mouth and it will fucking do everything perfect. I mean, the assertion of this company, they get everything perfect. And of course they throw in Apollo 13 to make you think it's not going to be, I think problems could happen. Okay. And then we had 2 real space shuttle catastrophes, because that's what happens when you really do it. Whenever they decide to hatch this whole thing, we have to just be ready, and we have to have a checklist before they conduct their exercise. And again, my videos, I think, are a great example of exactly how to parse every step of the way, because it can't be this lame crap where, we have a blackout period in the launch. We don't get any recording of it traveling to the moon. We just get what they want us to see, what they have CG'd together is all we ever get to see. Now we know that the population that wants to believe is going to ingest this stuff like crazy. But imagine this. Imagine we get our checklist together way ahead of time. And we tell our friends, hey, you know what? This is never going to happen. And that's never going to happen. And these are things that should happen. Just the whole idea that, again, this is eating me up more and more as just a great smoking gun thing. And we don't say it enough. And I want you guys to start saying this, which is they don't put rovers on the moon. And by the way, I call the SpaceX Roadster a rover 100 times in that NASA waste video. And I apologize. It confused half of you, very rightfully so. But a rover, like the one they have on Mars, should be on the moon first. Test the platform. But they can't touch the moon. They can't touch it because they lied 6 times about what happened on the surface of the moon. And so they never go back in any way, shape, or form. Because if they go to the Sea of Tranquility, according to this Q fucker, we went to the secret, clandestine space, whatever, dude, whatever. Why don't you fucking arrest one person on Earth before lying about who the fuck went to the moon, right? Really? But they could land a rover. Sea of Tranquility is a gigantic flat area on the moon. It's those big dark spots, is the smooth, Utah salt flat kind of land. Okay. So put a rover there, figure out a path, give yourself some, wiggle room, land, get that thing out, and drive straight to all 6 locations where they said they landed on the moon. And let's just see you recreate all the footage. Let's see you recreate all the craters, right? Again, explain to me how the surface is the same between 4 missions. 2 missions reuse 2 different sets. Okay. I want you to make that happen. Now, again, the only thing they could possibly do, but won't, okay, so they have a problem. So if we were to, and I've said this once before, but if let's say they've mastered how to get there. The challenge is getting there is going to have to be something that's off. If you want to go up ahead of time, so the theory I'm about to give you is that they go there secretly, put all the stuff there that's supposed to be there, create all the rover lines, from the tire marks and all that good stuff, put trash on the ground, whatever they have to do. They recreate the photographs from the footage that they supposedly took, put the cameras there, put the American flags there, all this stuff. Be funny, the American flags, because they're not going to behave like they did in the sets, right? But get it all prepped. And so when they go there, looky, it's right there. Very difficult to do. Very difficult to do. And the number one reason is that as they faked the set itself, faked where all the craters were. I mean, they created craters on Earth somehow. Usually it's just explosives in the ground. Okay, well then you have to recreate every single minute crater on the ground, which they could do in a small mini sense, I guess you could say. Micro sense. But it's all the mountainscapes in the background they can't probably recreate unless they literally recreate, down to the pixel from a particular view, all the photographs that they have up there. So that's something you can put in your bag of tricks. When it comes up, you can just say, look, I don't need to show you any footage for you to know that it's logical for us to test the platform in the easiest way. Let's look at the fact that, Greenland, Iceland, and a few other places in the world have NASA rovers, and they're up there. They say NASA on them. You can see pictures of them, all these cameras set up. But we tested it here on Earth first, because why? Well, we want to find out if these rovers work. All right, well, how much money are we spending here? You mean to tell me Americans are going to be disappointed to see a rover land on the moon? They're going to think it's a waste of money, especially if they were able to drive over to where all these American flags have been put in the ground, all these kickstands from the lunar modules. I don't think anyone would be the slightest bit upset. That would show that we're really going back to the moon, and this is the first step. But they don't. Mars? Are you kidding me? Something else. I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent, but bring us back to the subject matter, because there's this word we use, utopia, right? And it means different things to different people at different times. Different locations in the world would definitely define it because it's a proprietary word based on what we desire the most, right? Imagine the world after a big reset, a true reset. Well, maybe not even the entire world, maybe just the United States of America, and potentially citizens from other modern countries might fall in line, right? They might say, hey, we need to do that here in Europe and whatever. But whatever, let's just say United States gets its shit together and gets rid of all these organizations. And it gets to the point where it's sort of like, there's a great scene in the movie Ford versus Ferrari, which won't spoil the movie for you at all, but it's Christian Bale's playing this driver and his wife is played by this beautiful woman. I don't know her name. She's an incredible actress. The whole movie is just great. I saw it twice, second time the other day. But there's a scene where there's some pressure between Christian Bale and his wife, the character of Christian Bale and his wife. And it's that he's having a hard time making money. He races, but it never really yields any prize money. And so they're kind of always on the skids. And this IRS guy shows up to the wife while he's off trying to race. And she's pissed off that he lied to her that they were so upside down in the cash. And so just before he gets a job where he makes like $200 a day in the 60s, which is just a phenomenal amount of money, he goes off with Matt Damon's character to look at this new car, this Ford GT that they've designed to start to beat Ferrari. But it's the very first time the car's just arrived, the first time he's going to take it for a drive. And he runs off the night before and he drives the car and he comes back. And his wife looks out the window and sees him go off with Matt Damon's character, who's Shelby. And the next day, she's driving him, just the two of them, in the station wagon. And she starts saying, well, where were you last night? What did you go and do? And he's kind of covering up because he's not sure if he wants to race for Ford. And he doesn't want to share it with her until he makes the decision because he doesn't want to get her hopes up and, go through, drag her through more hell. Okay. So she is asking him and he's not necessarily lying, but he won't tell her the truth. So she starts driving the station wagon faster and faster and faster. And he's like, he's a racer and they're really cool with each other. So he's like, hey, honey, you're going really fast here. And she goes, yeah, I'm going fast. What do you care? And she keeps going quicker and quicker until eventually she spins the car out, almost goes head on with another car. And when they spin out, the highlight of the scene, the conclusion of the scene, which is brilliant, is that he finally comes clean. He's like, hey, okay, well, he wants me in a race, but I haven't made the decision yet. So I don't want to bother you with this drama unless I make the decision. And she goes, well, does the job pay? And he goes, yeah, it's $200 a day. And she goes, you didn't say yes? And he's like, well, I'm not sure. And he goes, well, why are you so mad at me? She says, because I just want you to stop lying to me. Stop pretending like you need to lie to me when you don't. You could have told me we were upside down with the IRS right when it occurred and everything would have been fine. You could have come home last night and told me that there was this offer on the table and everything would have been fine, regardless of what you choose. And I find that with liars, that's a very big thing. Now, he wasn't necessarily lying at the time. He held back the IRS information, which definitely put him in the doghouse. But there's a point when you experience so much conspiracy and so many lies with excuses that at least, we don't have to agree on why they lie about going to the moon. We saw the inspiration that it gave mankind. We saw, like myself, being super interested in the space programs because I did think we went to the moon, and then they followed up with the real space shuttle that really launched. And so, hey, man, I have things in me that I consider assets of my intelligence that were given to me by a hoax. So there's this weird irony of the whole thing, of me disliking the fact that they continue to hang on to it. But I think there would be a point in the release of truthful information that we're all going to get to that point where it's like, okay, just tell me the truth. I'm not going to attack you. I'm not going to do anything crazy. In fact, it's like finding a bug in software. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing because we fixed the bug and then it doesn't disrupt millions of customers. So just tell me the truth so that we can go out and joyfully reconstruct the world with reality, with what really can be done. And when mankind finds out there's an obstacle to get to the moon, we address it and we get past it as a whole society instead of a bunch of scientists coveting what can't be done, keeping those barriers from mankind, right? The one thing I think is interesting, and this is going to be, sorry, it's a little political. I've noticed something where, politicians typically do this bait and switch thing. Like what is it? Bush Sr. telling us, read my lips, no new taxes. That's what he got elected on. And then of course he raised taxes, So these fuckers lie constantly, right, about what they are. But I think that the one that Republicans have done that type of lie where it's like, I'm telling you what I'm not going to do and then I'm going to do it. The Democrat side, especially with this campaign that's running in 2020, the amount of people who have philosophically hated their voting base, they're misogynistic, they're racist, they don't believe in, pro-choice, blah, blah, blah. They don't like gays getting married, all this other kind of stuff. They've all said it. They've all been recorded saying it. And then they want you to think that they've had this big philosophical birthing or rebirth to have you vote for them and you're not going to be against them, sort of thing, right? The whole Democratic Party, was racist up until this phantom date in the 70s where they said, oh, we made this big change. You're like, okay, that should be on Wikipedia, right? Shouldn't it have a date and something we celebrate for Democrats where it's like, May 4th, everybody changed, or April 1st, probably a better date. It never happened. It never occurred. The party got to a point where they realized they had played their cards in the KKK and the keep everyone segregated. They wanted the different water fountains and they fought for the South, to keep slavery, all these things. They fought the 13th Amendment's creation. And then they're the ones who create all the black codes and the Jim Crow laws to keep everybody persecuted. Even if you were a free slave, they knew you had no education. So they baited and put traps around these people really technically remain slaves. And so that's an archetype that's out there. And as, if we were to get our fantasy situation where the world rebirths, or at least, a region, and I don't say this in any arrogant way, but it does seem that, okay, for as horrible as America is supposed to be from all these Democrats, right? Every person wants to live here that's not in another first world country, right? So Chinese people trying to push in like crazy. Mexican people trying to push in like crazy. Indian people trying to push in like crazy. All the Middle Eastern people are trying to push in like crazy. Canada, man, they dig their place. They're cool. Europe, they dig their place. England digs their place. But anyone who's in the Straits, even a bunch of African people are coming over and they're trying to get the American dream. They don't want it to be missing when they get here, right? And so I think that if we were able to, in America, to, gut the FBI, gut the CIA, gut NASA, gut JPL, gut some of these corporations that are trying to control the press and, advance narratives to change the belief system of Americans to vote a particular way, magic starts to occur. Imagine, for instance, NASA goes, just a mind-blowing thing where, NASA executives actually come out in a press conference and say, now that the last astronaut has died, here's the truth. We didn't go to the moon, blah, blah, blah. Everyone who works here had nothing to do with it because we're all brand new employees. And there's a new website that we've created, a new kind of wiki out there, which is all the fabrications, what we've been able to do, all the true facts of all of our satellite reconnaissance is all published now. The Orion mission that was covered, held in secret is now all published. Everything's out there. Then JPL goes next. Then maybe a bunch of military spending for Black Ops goes third. Big ones go. And okay, so the public is now in this realm of like, okay, this is the time. If you want any understanding and sympathy from the population, you need to go now. Ford Motor Company, GM, GE, all the big networks, Disney, every one of them. Now's the time to come clean, because if you wait another 5 years, 10 years to come clean, our patience with you is going to be over. Just like that scene in Ford versus Ferrari. You know, she told her husband, look, you be honest with me. And the rest of the movie, he was very, he disclosed everything as quickly as he realized that she might want to know. And that fixed their marriage. It was cool. So, we kind of need to fix our marriage with our big organizations that are out there. We know that Adam Schiff is leaking everything that he learns from secret meetings. It should be an utter felony for him to leak anything. And Trump keeps accusing him on Twitter of leaking and saying he knows he's leaking. Okay, well, do you have an FBI? Do you have any fucking people that can just watch where this motherfucker goes? Can you put a warrant out on his phone calls and text messages and everything? Because he's a huge suspect in this crime, which is leaking internal information before it's been fully figured out, right? Plus he leaks lies too to create disruption because he serves as globalist overlords. All right, well, we need to see some of these people go to jail. Well, in fact, we need to see every single person who's guilty get a sentence of some sort. Maybe one person qualifies for probation. Maybe one person's sentence is nothing more than you're kicked out of government service and you have a scarlet letter on you now because you were a liar. Yeah, you're not in jail, but you'll never be revered the way that you were when you were lying. Okay. I'll close with this. How many times when you were a kid, you did something that to you were going to die. Your parents were going to kill you because you broke the window. You dented the car. You burned something, you broke something or whatever. This has been the premise of so many sitcoms. It's not even funny. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air has had probably 5 of these episodes. One was simple as breaking a lamp. I think even the Brady Bunch did that once, right? And if you ever become a parent of a child and you go through the full cycle of their youth, as a parent that, your kid's not supposed to get drunk at a party, especially under the age of 21. Especially when they're not around you, they could go off and get killed in some, DUI accident or all kinds of get raped, whatever. But that you want to tell your kid, look, here's the sort of chicken and egg issue that we have with our children, which is the chicken and egg issue we have with all these agencies, which is you want to tell your kid, look, you're not to drink alcohol until you're 21. And you try to tell them all the problems that they could run into, but some parents don't even do that. But what they don't tell their kids half the time is, well, if you do get drunk, meaning if you go against my will, you're to give me a call no matter what. Here's your cell phone. Call me. You're not to drive home drunk. You're not to be with other people drunk because of all these things that could happen to you. And the reason why they don't offer that typically is because that kind of says it's okay to cheat on my rule. I think there's probably quite a few parents that are missing kids because they forgot to give that second half of the equation. They did just draconially come down on their children and say, you do that, I'm going to kill you, blah, blah, kick your ass, blah, 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 blah. The kid who hit me when I was 18, he was 18 too. All he could say after he hit my car with his car was, my dad's going to kill me. He's going to kill me, kill me, kill me, kill me. It's all he kept saying because 6 months earlier, he had hit someone else from behind and totaled his car and the other car. He was test driving the car he hit me with, right? So if NASA thinks, and if the government thinks, and if corporations think that all we're going to do is burn them to the ground, enslave all of them in work camps or put them to death or something crazy, right? Then they're never going to come out and say, look, I inherited this situation. I didn't create it, right? We're pretty sure, I'll give you a few examples. We're pretty sure that Bill Clinton inherited the Mena, Arkansas runways, which is the runways that way up in the Appalachian Mountains that don't have any roads to them, to bring in the C-130s full of heroin and cocaine. He inherits it as he becomes governor. They have to make sure he's a slime ball, so he'll go along with it. And then there's accolades if you do. And there you go. Holden. who was, he was the attorney general for Obama. He inherited the Fast and Furious guns for drugs scandal, where we're giving away M16s, the intelligence agencies, we're giving away M16s, getting cocaine for $1 to dollar value, which say an M16 costs you $5,000 fully loaded. We get $5,000 of cocaine at cost, roughly. And then we move it for $40,000 to $100,000, and they make the liquid cash in the background that funds all these clandestine secret projects. Okay, so you inherit it. It's not your thing. Well, I'm pretty sure every single human being that works for NASA and GPO and all these other agencies and other corporations, where someone like the guy that became CEO of Google, the Indian guy, well, he didn't make the place. He didn't create its project. He wasn't part of DARPA, most likely. Facebook, whatever. If Zuckerberg were to leave and some guy takes his place, well, he inherits the whole thing. And they can come out and say, look, okay, for obvious reasons, I didn't come out my first day and say that this place is completely corrupt because I don't know who's going to kill me. But now, since there's this climate and there's this movement to be honest, to do a one-time cleanup, okay, to bring in federal auditors, whatever it takes, right? The people get to walk through the place and see what's going on. Now we're going to come out. I think the only way that could surface would be for us to create kind of a buzz. It's a super idealistic thing that most likely won't happen, but I think it's just something in the back of our mind that, again, through chatter, through speaking, miracles can happen, you know. I'll give you an example that's a little ludicrous, but I bet there's a few of you that have had this experience. You and your friends are clever. You create a few words, a few catchphrases, a few gestures that are cool words to say. Somebody invented the word stoked in California, in the United States of America. I'm so stoked that you're coming over, meaning I'm really happy that you're coming over. Whoever created that word started using it in the public, and eventually the whole world starts to learn it. In 1987, when I first came to California, my buddy was teaching me all the words that they say. No one was saying it in the Midwest at all in 1987, at all, unless they were doing it from California, right? But now I can come back to Kansas, go into a little tiny country town with 10,000 people, and I can hear someone go, yeah, I'm totally stoked you're here, you know. And you're like, whoa, that word got all the way into the lexicon of the Midwest. All right. So we start talking a little bit of tolerance to expunge all these lies without major penalty. As a matter of fact, you know, how many times you get a plea deal because you're willing to turn in the truth? A lot of times plea deals, you know, end up in someone else getting prosecuted. But if the head honcho comes out and says, look, I'm going to fully disclose, but I want to make sure that neither myself or any of the employees that inherited these clandestine secret projects, it's really two in the same words, but just in case you don't know what that word means, I don't want them to go to jail. They're going to be fully cooperating with everyone. In fact, we've done a massive due diligence to prepare a press release. We've made a 10-hour movie to clear up all issues. We're going to rewrite the history books. And we're going to also, okay, and this is the cool part about it. If NASA were to come clean and they're at $60 million a day doing, you know, probably some great stuff and then some fake shit. Okay. So say you come clean on your blue screen ISS crap, the harnesses, all the composite work that's going on. Now, maybe SpaceX doesn't survive some of their bullshit, but, you know, I think they're really doing some real launches and some real supply missions, some other things that are legit. But, you know, some of them might take hits, but maybe we make it $100 million a day, because what we're really going to do after that is we reassess everything. And we say, okay, folks, do we want the ability to go interplanetary? We're going to use the moon as a little platform. Once we completely master getting to that location, back and forth, we do put a flag in the ground. We do build a base up there if it's even possible. If it's not possible, then we'll rethrow everything. We'll figure out, well, maybe we can't exist on other planets. Who knows, right? And then we move it to Mars and we relaunch everything. Get rid of the lies. Get paid to go the truth route. Full disclosure. Websites that report everything that's going on. Not the schematics of how everything works, folks, but just we built a new motor and boy, is it really powerful. We think it's going to get us what we need. You remember those old contests they used to have where you have a thermometer on a piece of paper and then you'd be fundraising and someone would come and fill it up with red, marker. Well, what if we built a design, just like a video game, like Civilization, when you have to go to Alpha Centauri with this big rocket and you create all these different habitat modules and launch modules and all this other stuff. What if NASA were to come up with a platform that they think will get us to the moon? It's a space station. We're going to ferry fuel up there. Maybe it's not fuel. Maybe it's something else. Maybe jet engines or rocket engines don't work in space because there's nothing to push off of. Okay. So let's come up with something else. And then as we invent these things, we address these like symbols of design. We fill it in. Well, we got habitat worked out. We just don't have the launch vehicle worked out. Whatever. And it becomes this exciting, living game that the entire world plays. Maybe it's not the American flag. Maybe it's like the world flag, whatever. If everybody participates. Anyway, I think you feel me. I know it's a real esoteric episode, but it sort of vents some of the mortar between the bricks that I think about between episodes that I'm like, Jesus, I don't know how to fit that in an episode. So I thought you guys might dig that. Anyhow, if you haven't been to deepthoughtsradio.com, please go. Today I'll make a short bumper. It's got video links, audio links. It has social media links. It has donation links. It has a store. And it has the all new remastered season 1. So get up there, bookmark it, get around. Make sure you've seen all the episodes you dig, because there's a lot of stuff up there. I guess there's 510 active videos up there. And you can download all the MP3s to your device and listen at your leisure. So take care of yourself and someone else, and I'll see you in the next Deep Thoughts. Over now.